friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robbie. Welcome back to our channel Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be doing a wrap-up for June and a look forward in TBR to July. Another month in the books, literally. Wow, I didn't even mean to make that pun, but good for me. Wow. So, what did we read this month? What did we start with? The first thing I think we started with was Percy Jackson.
Yeah?
Yeah, with the...
Which is no longer Percy Jackson. Heroes of Olympus.
Yes,
but it is Percy Jackson by proxy.
Yeah. This ends and appropriately with Percy Jackson kind of leading
forefront of the book.
Anyway, we haven't said the title of it yet. Son of Neptune, the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series.
So good.
And I really liked this book.
Yeah, this one was fun.
This was what I wished the first book in the series was. Something that made me just as excited for like what's coming and just like moving at a really good pace, introducing new fun characters. Yeah, and it's not that I didn't like the first book. It's just I think this one was a serious step up. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
I think I did the same.
I think you gave it a 4. But yeah, I think it was a nice step up and made me very excited to continue on in the Jordanverse. And well, I mean, I'm almost done with the next one right now, so no spoilers.
Well, 50%.
But yeah, so that was our first read of the month.
Yeah.
And then we started. Well, I started ACOTAR, reading the first book in A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is also titled A Court of Thorns and Roses. I had a mixed time, I think, reading this book.
Thanks for trying to be nice about it.
Would be a good way to say it. It
was mixed, yeah.
I think that the book itself is fine. There were, like, I would have given it probably like a 3, because I just thought the book itself was kind of like, okay, sure. Like, not a ton happens until the very, very end, and I found that I didn't care as much about, like, the stakes and world building and all the cool things that happened at the end of the book to, like, set up clearly what's going to happen in the future of the series. I found myself caring less about that and enjoying more kind of, like, you know, parts of the middle where it's just a bit more laid back and it's kind of romantic and cozy. And I found that I liked that part more than I did the plot stuff. I just didn't really care about it too much. The stakes didn't impact me that much, and I felt specifically like the villain in that book I found to be disappointing. All of those things I could have really forgiven. There's one specific character, I'm not going to talk about it. If you want to see details, go watch our video. There's one specific character who I really didn't like. And I talked about this in the video too. I had an extremely negative reaction to what I assume is going to happen with that character. And I still think...
unfair.
Which is unfair. I still am pretty sure I'm right. But it's still...
Okay, blah, blah, blah. You're done.
But it's... So anyway, so there's one specific thing that happened in there that I particularly found to be somewhat repulsive. And we'll see how that happens. I'm about to start the next book in the series, and I really hope I'm wrong. And that would be great, and maybe that would reframe the way I look at the first book, but I believe I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars.
Just gotta read the book and not be trying to guess.
Is that a possible thing?
Yes!
Everyone makes assumptions as they're reading,
yeah,
don't
but
they?
still you're not like, oh, well, this is gonna happen, so I'm annoyed by this whole book. I don't, personally.
Okay, well then you're better than me.
Just gotta be present. That's the whole point of books is escapism. Whatever. We don't need to talk about that anymore.
No, we can keep talking about it.
You continue. You read ACOTAR.
What did you give the first one? I don't remember what you... I didn't hate it.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this with you and with many people. Like, I didn't really love the first one until the ending, but the ending did excite me, and I found the stakes to be really good. I've always liked Feyre. I've always liked the main character from the get-go. She wasn't my... Let me amend that. She was my absolute favorite. But I liked the character. I liked her POV. And so for me, the ending was enough to get me so freaking excited for the next books. So I had a very different experience. I think I probably rated it a 3.5 maybe. Just because I didn't really love the whole book the first time I read it. The second time I read it, it read so differently after having read the whole series. But yeah, no, I didn't have an unsimilar experience to you. I just felt less intense about it.
Interesting. Okay. And then the last book that we talked about this month was another What book.
We decided it's A Crown of Thorns.
A Crown of Swords. A Crown of Swords. We said the or just Crown of Swords in the video, and we were wrong both times. It's A Crown of Swords. So Awesome. Good for us. Good
so
job.
We nailed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this one. I was surprised but now I'm not surprised because I was told, and by the internet, by you, by other people, that this is the start of the slog, or at least I'm getting closer to the slog. And so I was actually kind of curious as to how the slog would read, because, which I've now kind of understood, is that I think people deem it that way because there's not a lot of action.
Sure.
There's not a lot of there are forward-moving plot points, but they're not as fast or action-packed. It was a lot of personal stories, emotional beats, and I loved that. So I really liked it. I liked that we got to spend a lot of slow time with the characters that I liked a lot. So I really enjoyed this book. It was I don't know if it was necessarily one of my favorites of the series. There's so many, I don't even know that I could pick one just yet. But yeah, I had a great time with it. It was a good read.
Yeah, I think we both gave it 4 out of 5. Yeah,
it was enjoyable.
I like this book. Yeah,
there's a lot of personality to it.
There's a lot of interpersonal relationship stuff, and you really dig in with the characters a lot, which is fun.
Which is what I personally like when I'm reading. I don't necessarily, don't get me wrong, I love an action-packed, like, heart-beating moment, but I also, most of the time when I'm reading for relationships, and I'm reading for personal growth and personal stories, and to relate to characters, so I really liked a plot like this that was kind of very much driven that way.
And I mean, I think that's one of Wheel of Time's biggest strengths. You know, there's a lot of things that Robert Jordan does very well, but just the idea of the fact that you're with the same main characters for 14 books means, like, there's no way to avoid really becoming attached to these characters. Otherwise, I can't imagine you'd read the whole series if you didn't like it.
It's also interesting reading this style of writing because what I normally read is very fast-paced, and you are getting into the characters' heads very fast. And that was kind of a part of my frustration with the beginning of Wheel of Time. I was like, I need to know. Like, I want to know what's going on in their heads. I want to know how they tick. I want to know what makes them who they are. But it's just a slow process with this author in this series.
Yeah. So did you read anything on your own this month?
I did.
Okay.
I loved them. I read 2 more books, and I devoured them. Absolutely devoured them. I read Divine Rivals, and then the second book, Ruthless Vows.
Ruthless Vows?
Ruthless Vows.
Vows. Okay, good.
Yeah. Ruthless Vows. Robbie really likes the name Divine Rivals, too.
I think Divine Rivals is a great name.
It's a phenomenal name for a novel. I loved them. The first one I truly devoured. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I understand why it became such a big thing. It was something that I'd been recommended on Instagram, Bookstagram, Book Talk for me for a long time, and just haven't had a moment to pick it up. And it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I snagged it. And I really enjoyed it. I rated the first one a 5 just because I'm such an emotional reader. So, like, for me, I was like, I couldn't put it down. I was so obsessed. I love the characters. I love the character development. I love when an author writes a book about writers because I think it gives them so much space to just write beautiful words. And there were so many beautiful words in this book. It was just stunning. The description of things were just beautiful. There's intrigue and there's relationships and there's romance. It wasn't quite spicy, but the way that intimate moments were described were some of the most beautiful and real that I've read. Very simple, but also very eloquent. And I just found that to be stunning. And I loved all of the characters, like really loved them. I'm obsessed. And Ruthless Vows was definitely a bit more of a action-packed, really sad, but
because the vows are ruthless.
Okay. Yeah, it was very much a, like, I don't even know. The first one was that getting to know the characters, and I thought it was done so beautifully, and there was a lot of action, and there was, like, so much heart in it, and the second one was very much coming right off of the end of the first one, so it wasn't not enjoyable, but the glimmer of it had kind of worn off for me, I would rate it just slightly lower, like a 4.5, but I still absolutely loved it. I loved it. I understand why this series has completely enraptured people. I'm definitely going to be looking for more of, is it Rebecca Yarros? Rebecca Ross, excuse me.
So many Rebeccas.
There are a lot of Rebeccas. It made me really want to delve more into Rebecca Ross's writing because I just absolutely loved them. It was beautiful. Give me more. Sorry, I talked about both of the books that I read. You continue.
That's great.
Is that all?
That's
okay.
what you're supposed to do.
Okay, I don't
What else
remember.
did you do?
That's all I did.
Okay,
Woo-hoo!
great.
I've kind of given up on the Bridgerton series for a while because I don't really like it that much, to be honest with you.
Well, hey, at least you're
So
fair.
I was like kicking myself because I was like, I gotta finish Penelope and Colin's book before this new series comes out. I gotta finish the series. I'm like, got in my head about like, I need to like go and sit down and read all 8 books. And then I liked the third one a lot, but then I'm not motivated to read it. So I'm like, why am I trying to do it?
Don't bother.
I'll get there eventually, maybe. Or maybe I won't.
Or maybe you won't, and that's okay too.
It is. I'm not very good at
Stopping,
DNFing.
Yeah, sure. Me either.
I'm terrible at it. So that's almost where I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I just don't even pick up the book.
Yeah? Then it's not like I'm not
then I'm not like not giving it a chance. I'm just not even reading it.
Yeah, sure. That's fair.
So, yeah. Anywho, what did you read this month, Robbie? So many.
Yeah, I read 4 books on my own. I started with Speaking Bones, the 4th book in the Dandelion Dynasty.
There's so many good titles we've got.
Well, you gotta have a good title,
Come
I
on,
think, to sell your
Bones.
book. So this is the final book in the Dandelion Dynasty, which is a quartet of books by Ken Liu. And this series is something really special, I think. I wish more people would read it. I think it's kind of well known in internet circles, but I don't think it's really in the public eye in any way, which I think is a shame. It's so different than anything else out there. It's Asian-inspired fantasy, and the number of themes, it's very, like, the books are long, but the number of themes that Ken Liu manages to, like, squeeze into, and just beautiful moments that he manages to squeeze into these very long books almost makes them feel like they're too short to contain them. His prose is gorgeous, some of the best that I've ever read. It's an unbelievably frustrating series because you care so much about the world and the things that people are doing in it, and some of those people, even though they're trying to do what they think is the right thing, are doing really terrible, awful things. And it's very much a does the end justify the means sort of thing. And how will you be remembered, and does it matter whether or not you'll be remembered in a certain way as long as you've accomplished what you've been trying to. And, there's some other really interesting ones that I haven't seen touched on much in other fantasies, such as, like, the inherent strengths and weaknesses in the written word, which is not something people talk about a lot in books.
Yeah, specifically in books, which is the written word.
And, it's another series. It's not at all grimdark in any way or anything like that, but it is a series where the author is not afraid to kill off key characters, which is sometimes just truly, truly heartbreaking. But one of my favorite things about it, that I talked about this a bit in my little micro review, which I release on Shorts, if you've never seen any of them, for all the individual books I read, is the focus on engineering and invention. I've never seen anything quite like it, where Robert Jordan or other authors will have extremely, like, paragraphs and paragraphs about, like, what's, like, the material of some woman's dress. Ken Liu will write pages about exactly how some invention they're making in this kind of, it's coined silk punk, but, kind of industrial revolution type age they are going through. And it's fascinating to read because it leads to, whether this was intentional or not, the entire series kind of being a celebration of the human mind and just the joy of creativity and invention, even when the things that are causing you to come up with these inventions are negative, and maybe the inventions are terrible things that will do terrible things to people, but they will also necessarily lead to progress for your culture as a whole. I really can't praise this series enough. I know that the first book will rub some people the wrong way, just because of the way it's written. But I really implore you to give it a try if you are looking for something that is epic and is fantasy and is just not like anything else you'll have ever read. I can guarantee it will be very different.
We love it.
After I finished that, I read the final book in the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, The Hero of Ages. And I had read this trilogy before, but I think that kind of, because Brandon Sanderson's writing is so much about, like, twists and, like, huge, big plot moments, I do feel like sometimes it can have a lessened impact on rereads. And I felt that more in the first two than I did in this one. This book just doesn't let up. It is, like, the whole thing is like a Sanderlanche. I really couldn't put it down.
Sanderlanche?
Yes, so it's like, they call this thing, so...
Oh, you gotta have a Sanderlanche.
He does this,
like an avalanche,
a lot of his books at the very end, like, you can't put down because so much stuff has happened in the last few hundred pages.
100%. I feel like that's the case with a lot of fantasy books.
Yes, exactly. There's a coined term for that.
Sandra Lanch.
Sandra Lanch.
I like that.
His fan base has coined that
I
term.
love a coined book term.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I really love this. This was a 5 out of 5 stars for sure. Yeah, I mean, this got to where I kind of want all Sanderson books to get to. There was a ton of action. There were incredibly epic moments. The last book suffered a little bit, I think, from answering some questions, but really from middle book syndrome, from being like, it's setting up so many questions. In this book, boy, does it answer them, and a bunch you didn't even know existed that you had to ask, and kind of tangentially starts talking so much about the wider Cosmere, which is Brandon Sanderson's extended universe, and yeah, we've been with these characters for 3 books now. You feel really attached to them. There are tragic moments, there are epic moments. You see these characters fulfill their greatest potential. And I mean, I got to imagine everyone's at least, if you're watching this channel, you've probably at least heard of Mistborn. If you haven't read it yet, absolutely give it a shot. It's really fun. It's not a hard read. Brandon Sanderson's bar for entry is super low. So can't recommend it enough. After that, I read the 5th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, my favorite, and I'm almost caught up, which makes me super sad because I love these books, and this one was another 5 out of 5 stars. I apparently had a really good reading month.
Yeah.
And I think it was my favorite one, kind of by a lot, which is crazy because I really liked the other ones a lot too. This book was the longest, and it just started setting up so many fascinating things. This whole book is about a floor that they've been talking about for a while, where they're going to be hunted by other people who were watching, like outsiders, who came, like paid to come in and be a part of the game and get to hunt them. And so this floor has been set up for so long, and at this point there's like a solid crew of side characters that you've gotten to know and love, and they are starting to have very big impacts. There were lots of twists and turns. There were a bunch of insane Carl plans and donuts, going through quite a bit of emotional growth. There is, of course, a ton of irreverent and stupid humor that just works for me. And one of my favorite parts about it is it's been building over the past few books, but the psychological weight and trauma of what they've been going through and the things that they're being forced to do and witness is really starting to come in, especially for Carl, which I think is, this series is so fun and silly and kind of dumb. He would never have had to do it and the books would still be very entertaining, but the fact that Matt Dinniman, the author, is going in on this, which makes sense, is just appreciated. It gives the books an amount of depth that they probably don't need, but is very much appreciated and just kind of takes them to that next level. So I'm still loving these books. Again, if you've never read any lit RPGs, I have never read any other lit RPGs either, but this series rocks.
Send him his way, because he's going to be missing
if you have any
series.
other lit RPGs or progression fantasies, the series that you absolutely adore, throw them in the comments down below, because I'm going to be looking for some to start reading after I finish the 6th book next month. I'm going to be looking for another series like that. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. But then I finished the month out with the 1st book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy by Tad Williams. The book was, I know. The book is The Dragonbone Chair. And I liked this book more than I expected to. Not because I didn't think I was going to like the book, but because the only thing I ever consistently hear about this book when I hear people talking about it or see people posting about it online is, man, it's so slow, but you gotta get through it. It's really good at the end.
One of those.
And it's really good at the end, and that is true, but this book rocks. And I'm really excited to continue in this series. I liked it a lot. The ending is fascinating. This is some of the best world building I've ever seen. I just really, really love the world of Ostenard that he has created. Unless the next books suck, which I've never heard, I think I'm probably going to read all, this trilogy, The Heart of What Was Lost, and I'm looking forward to reading The Last King of Ostenard, which is still being written right now. That quartet, which Tad Williams is finishing, I believe, later this year. And I loved it. It's classic fantasy. You can see the echoes of Tad Williams in so many other fantasy series. More than echoes, honestly, in, Game of Thrones. Which I know he is inspired by George R. R. Martin is inspired, at least in part, by Tad Williams, and not really in like the content of the books, but in certain, like just like the political bent, I think, is probably a part of that. But also the fact that Austenard is very clearly kind of like a British Isles inspired fantasy setting, whereas so is Westeros, and the whole Game of Thrones setting is clearly very inspired by that as well. So, you can see the echoes of Tad Williams and like Robin Hobb's writing. I don't even know if she was inspired by him, but they have somewhat similar writing styles. And I do think that that's part of what makes these books, at least the first one particularly, I can't say for any of the rest, a struggle for some people to get into. Tad Williams, at least in this book, has a very meticulous writing style, and like you think Robert Jordan is descriptive. Oh man, whoa! Like I mean, and it's Tad Williams wants to make sure, at least it seems like, that you know exactly where you are and what all of it looks like in like every scene. And while that's nice, it is just like
but also for you, who's not really a visualizer.
I'm not a visualizer, so if that continues, I assume by the end of the series I'm going to be doing a little bit of skimming. Don't out me. Yeah, I mean, and that the difference between that and this is a trilogy, and that was a 14-book series.
No, I'm not. But anyway. We've also just talked about the fact that like I am a visualizer. So like I'm like, oh yes, her dress looks like that. She's got that hair. Like I'm in. You're just like,
well, it's also
okay,
it also just on. Well, the thing is, it's
not really moving on, but like you don't. The world's built differently in your head than they build in mine. Sure. So like.
And full disclosure, I mean.
Also, mind you, I don't need a full page of a description of a piece of clothing.
Full disclosure, I'm saying I really enjoyed this series, this book, and I really, really did. But it did take me, like, I finished Butcher's Masquerade less than halfway through June. I only finished The Dragonbone Chair like a day ago, so it took me like over 2 weeks to read that book, which is extremely long for me. And so it was a bit of a challenge to get through at certain points. I never once wanted to put it down. It just doesn't move fast enough that I was like, I need, like, anytime I had free time, I was like, oh, I need to be reading this. I would be like, oh, I'd kind of rather play video games or watch something. And so it just really, I was only reading a few chapters a day as opposed to, like, 15% of the book. So take that as you will, but I think it's really worth reading. I mean, I haven't read something that's so, like, quintessentially feels like classic fantasy in a while. The characters, specifically Simon, who is our main protagonist, and it's a multi-POV story, but he is the main POV, I would say, and he is a kitchen boy who big things happen to, which, is a setup that is as old as the genre, really. Part of the reason I love this book is because of Simon. Because Simon is a 14-year-old boy, kind of like, who dreams of glory, but is an orphan and lives in the kitchens and is kind of looked after communally by the kitchen staff.
Oh.
And he... And part of the reason I love him so much is because I hate him sometimes, because he's just the worst.
He's just
He's a 14-year-old kid, and I think he's written pretty well. And you can see his slow growth starting even in this book, and I imagine it's going to be just, if it continues the way it is, I mean, I imagine it's going to be a masterful character arc by Tad Williams. So anyway, I'm vamping on, but yes. I really love this. This is a 4 out of 5 stars for me, and I really can't wait for cannot wait for the next one. Anyway, so let's look forward to what we're going to be reading in July. The first thing we're going to be putting a video out for is the next book in the Heroes of Olympus series, which is The Mark of Athena. I'm almost done with it. You're about halfway. Yeah. Very excited, so that video should be coming out next week. After that, I will be tackling the second book in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Mist and Fury. Court of Mist and Fury,
if you will.
So good joke. I am trepidatious, but trying to keep an open mind.
And I'm trying to stay as neutral as physically possible.
And then we're probably not going to do a Wheel of Time book this month. Probably not, because that's just it's a lot of reading.
Give myself a little bit of time.
Yeah. So we might put something else out. Who knows?
Yeah,
we have no real plan.
No.
What are you looking to read on your own?
That's a great question. Because I'm not really sure. Because I haven't really been able to tackle a lot of my TBR in a while, so I'm kind of like, I would love to read some like easy summer romances. I'm hoping to get my hands on Funny Story by Emily Henry. Love her so much. Other than that, but I'm not really like beholden to that. I would love to read that during the summer. She always writes a lovely summer romance.
Fun.
I'm looking into the I think it's the Twisted Love series, Twisted series by Anne Huang. I'm very much just looking for some spicy one-off romance 300 pagers. So I'm not really sure. That's what's sort of I'm eyeing on my TBR. If you have a summer romance that I should read, I would love something that's like a duology or a trilogy at least, because I like to stay with the same characters. Obviously, I know that's not what Emily Henry does, but she's a different entity entirely. So if you have any suggestions, send them my way, because I am looking, I would love some summer beach reads, some like cutie, little, easy, fun romances. Also, always about a fantasy, but doesn't have to be a fantasy. So give me your recommendations in the comments, please.
Great.
What about you, Robbie?
So I'm gonna continue reading the Memories Are on Thorn trilogy. This is not necessarily in order either. I don't know what the order is. But so I think the next book in that trilogy is called The Stone of Farewell. Could be wrong about that. But anyway, I'll be reading the second book in that series. And then once I have finished that, or who knows, whatever. Order doesn't matter. I'm going to be picking up the first book in the Mistborn Era 2 series, which is a quartet, and I do not know the title of, but I'm really excited because I've never read the Mistborn Era 2 series yet, and I've heard so many mixed things, so I'm really interested to get into it for myself and just make my own decisions and see what it is like. And then I'm definitely going to read... I'm definitely going to read the most recent book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and then I think I'll have been caught up because I think there's only 6 books out, and I will be devastated because I don't know what I'm going to do.
When's the next one coming out?
I have no idea. I haven't looked.
Okay.
Maybe it'll come out in August, and I'll be really lucky.
That'd be perfect.
But anyway, so I'm really excited for that, obviously. And otherwise, I mean, I'm going to, if I have any extra time, I will just keep plugging on through with the Memories Are on Thorn trilogy. I know that the Green Angel Tower is like one of the longest fantasy novels ever written or something, so if I can get a head start on that this month, that would probably be a good thing, because I can't imagine I will, well, I don't know, we'll see.
Who knows,
but I'm really excited to just keep going through that world. The end of the, I don't need to keep talking about the book. Sorry.
You should do a video
anyway,
about it. If you guys want to see a video about that series, Robbie's really ready to talk about it, so encourage him.
Clearly I am. Much more than I thought I was.
Yeah, it's great.
Anyway, that is our wrap-up and TBR. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Do we have a book coming from your subscriction?
Yeah.
So we might be doing an unboxing.
Yeah. We might be doing some unboxing videos going forward. We're not reps. This is not an ad.
But we could.
Okay, yeah, sure. I just subscribed to the Broken Binding, which is a special edition box set subscription service. They also just sell stuff as well.
He's gotten me obsessed with special editions.
And so the first trilogy of books that I will be receiving from them over the next 3 months is The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, which if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know I read last year and think is absolutely amazing and one of the best trilogies I've ever read in my whole life, and you should read it too. So, so I'm really excited to just get my hands on those, and I don't think I'm going to do a reread right away, but I do think I will get you to read them at some point, so that'll be exciting so that you can do... and they'll look really nice on our shelf.
Yes.
Maybe behind us here. Who knows? We haven't decided yet. Yeah.
We need some more bookshelves.
So we will either be doing an unboxing video when I get the first one, maybe sometime this month. I don't know how long shipping takes, or I haven't decided yet, or I might just wait until we get all 3.
Yeah.
Which would then be not until I think September. But we'll keep you all updated, or you may just see that video pop up at some point. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, so that is, so there's a potential for a video there, but who knows. Otherwise, yeah, that's everything from us.
Huzzah,
yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and...
we'll see you on our next adventure.